Welcome to the 2017 Westfield Candidates Forum, sponsored by the Westfield Leader. I'm Lauren Barr with the Leader, and I will be serving as the moderator for tonight's event. Reporter Fred Rossi will be serving as our timekeeper. We ask that the audience remain silent during the forum and hold their applause until the end of the session, except for right now, when you can welcome all the candidates with a round of applause. Tonight, we have the 8 candidates for Town Council. First Ward, Linda Habgood, Democrat. Sam Della Fera, Republican. Second Ward, Democrat Michael Dardia and Republican James Corcoran. Third Ward candidates, Democrat David Contract and Republican David Oliveira. And Fourth Ward candidates, Democrat Don Mackey and Republican Keith Loughlin. Questions will alternate between the 2 candidates of each ward, with the candidate directly answering a question having up to 2 minutes to respond. The candidate rebutting will have up to 1 minute to reply. At the end of the Q&A with all 4 wards, each candidate will have up to 3 minutes for a closing statement. Fred will signal candidates with a yellow card when they have 30 seconds remaining, and then again with a red card when their time has expired. After the council candidates have finished, there will be a brief break during which the council candidates will depart the stage and we will bring up the 2 mayoral candidates. Now let's get started. We begin with Linda Habgood in Ward 1. Is the town handling its court-ordered affordable housing obligations, or is there a potential for massive development projects like Cranford is facing?
I guess I would like to start by saying that it's not entirely clear how we're handling our affordable housing requirements. I think we're waiting right now for Mayor Skibitsky's information back to us on that. But I think one thing that we need to keep in mind as it relates to affordable housing is that it's not Section 8 housing. Affordable housing, as we're going to be required to comply with, really is for people who have a income between $40,000 and $65,000 a year. These are people that we would like to invite into our community and keep in our community. These are people who might be downsizing. These are recent college graduates. These are people who hold all kinds of jobs in our community, and we want to offer housing to them. So I think this is something that we should be proactively figuring out, and it would be very important for all of us to have as much information about the affordable housing requirements as we possibly can. So I look forward to Sam maybe giving us a little bit more information about those requirements as the sitting councilman. Sam?
Thank you. So Westfield continues to meet our state-mandated affordable housing obligation. As a result of the Mount Laurel line of cases from the New Jersey Supreme Court that some of you may be familiar with, every town is required to allow an opportunity for affordable housing. And I'm not against affordable housing. They didn't call it such when I was a kid, but I think I probably grew up in affordable housing. It was a 4.5-room apartment. But the town has managed our affordable housing obligation prudently and without harming the characteristics of our town. We recently settled our lawsuit brought by Fair Share Housing. Fair Share Housing told the courts that we had to build 1,600 high-density units of affordable housing in town. We fought it. We have settled. We've settled in a way that will preserve the character of our town without a crazy amount of high-density housing. Other towns haven't been so fortunate. Cranford, as you may have heard, is facing a 905-unit application. That's not going to happen in Westfield thanks to our settlement.
Next question goes to Mr. Della Fera. How would you work with elected officials from different political parties than your own?
So I've worked with officials from both parties. In fact, this idea of party lines, when you sit up here, when you get emails from residents, when you get phone calls from residents, there are no party lines. I see Debbie Burstall in the audience. I see Sharon Stockwell in the audience. When they reach out to me, I respond to them, even though I know they're of different parties. The best way to reach across party lines is to ignore party lines. My former law partner is Cory Booker. I used to reach across the table to deal with Senator Booker. And my firm hosted Josh Gottheimer the other day, last week. We're hosting Senator Dick Cody tomorrow night at my firm. I reach across party lines all the time. I recently attended a mayoral event. All the Union County mayors met at Manny's Diner in Clark, and every mayor had the same concerns. How do we address the high-density housing issue that you just heard about? And how do we convince the state legislature to preserve the 2% interest arbitration cap? I won't bore you with the details. We all know, we're all familiar with the 2% property tax levy cap. We can't raise property taxes more than 2%. And Westfield hasn't done that, by the way, nor do we make use of our state-allowed exceptions to that rule. But in order to preserve our ability not to raise taxes by 2%, the legislature passed a companion law that said when police and firefighters seek to arbitrate their contracts, arbitrators can't award more than 2%. Makes a lot of sense, right? Well, the 2% property tax cap levy law doesn't expire, but the 2% interest arbitration cap law expires at the end of the year. So, you know, all the mayors from across party lines wanted that issue to be addressed by the state legislature, wanted the issue of high-density housing to be addressed by the state legislature. We all have the same concerns when it comes to local issues.
Next question to Ms. Habgood. What is your I'm sorry.
Aren't we going to do a rebuttal?
Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead, your rebuttal. My apologies.
So we're talking about reaching across party lines, Lauren?
Right. How would you work with elected officials from a different political party than your own?
Okay. So if I'm elected onto this council, I absolutely am going to be working with people across party lines. Right now, the council, as a lot of you are aware, is 100% Republican. And I think that in order to reflect the fabric of our town and the profile of our town, we need to work hard for our council to be reflective of all of the people in town. When I started out my campaign, I decided not to use any of the voter rolls. I have been knocking on every single door in Ward 1, house by house. Over 1,600 houses at this point. To me, it was very important to meet all of my neighbors, regardless of their political affiliation, and I have listened to every single one of them, taking notes about who might be able to participate in commissions that we need to bring into our town, and how we can open up those commissions to be, again, more diversified and varied in terms of the people who serve on them. So,
Your time is up. The next question does go to you, though.
okay, thanks.
What is your understanding of the possible impacts to homeowners on the Westfield property tax revaluation?
So that's a tough thing that we all are going to face in the near future as the revaluation comes around. It's something that is overdue and will not have a lot of control over what happens in that process, because it's not something that happens at a council level or at a town level. But what I will say is that my running mates and Shelley and I have talked about the fact that it's very important to engage with the people who are going to be in charge of that process and understand the formulas and the approach that they're taking, so that we can understand and try to limit the impacts on us. I've heard concerns about that at the door when I've knocked and talked to people, but really what I've heard more about, to be honest with you, from residents is about how fast property taxes are increasing in Westfield. And so if you think back over the last 12 years in Westfield, our property taxes just related to the municipal budget have risen 65%. And a lot of people look at me and say, well, how can that possibly be? Because there's a state-mandated cap of 2%. The reality is that that has happened through the creation of a sewer tax and the allowance of moving the library tax off to the side. So one of the things that I'm going to work very hard on as your Ward 1 councilwoman is to look at other revenue streams that can come into the town so that we can reduce the pressure on property tax increases. And hopefully I'll have a chance to talk a little bit more about some of those examples as we get onto the next questions.
The revaluation, I wouldn't describe it as overdue. It's been a long time coming because it's another state-funded or unfunded state mandate. We didn't revalue properties because we're already the highest taxed municipality of the 21 in Union County. We're the 6th largest town in Union County. We send Union County more money than any other town in Union County. We send Union County just about enough money to fund our entire budget. And if my opponent's concerned about, I disagree with the 65%, by the way. I think that is not correct. But if my opponent is concerned about the tax increases in Westfield, which only represents 16% of our tax bill, she should be doubly concerned about the tax increases from Union County, who receives 24% of our tax bill. Those increases have been 7.25% on average per year over the past 8 years. Ours have been 2.25% per year over the past 8 years. So I hope my opponent spends some time in Elizabeth complaining to the Union County Freeholder Board about it.
Mr. Della Fera, should the town be doing more to curb tear-downs and new construction?
So tear-downs are evidence of investment in Westfield. I'm a big believer in private property rights, and I'm a big believer in the free market. If I want to sell my home for the highest price, as I'm sure we all do, and the highest price is going to be paid by a developer, then I should have the right to sell that home to the developer. Or if I choose to tear down the home I live in today, which I have no intentions of doing, and build a different home, I should have that right. The town has restrictions on what can be built. They were revised several years ago to lower the height, to decrease the amount of lot coverage, to avoid the McMansion phenomenon that had been happening in the 90s. But if I want to tear down my house, I don't want some politician telling me that I can't do it, okay? Investment in Westfield is what maintains our property values. Investment in Westfield is what allows increased revenue so that we can fund the services that the town provides. So I view, so the answer is, I don't think there's anything we can do. I'm very certain there's nothing we can do about tear-downs. And frankly, there isn't much I would want to do about tear-downs so long as the property, the building that's being constructed on that lot, it meets all of our guidelines. I mean, younger home buyers want a different home than I have. I don't have open floor plans. My house was built in 1927. Younger home buyers, the market shows, don't want those homes. And we've all seen homes in town that frankly have outlived their useful life, okay? So the fact that someone's willing to invest, potentially $1 million or more in a tear down and a rebuild in Westfield is a sign of how strong how desirable Westfield is as a community.
Ms. Habgood?
I think that how we look at tear downs in Westfield really needs to happen inside of a renewed master plan. Westfield hasn't looked at its master plan since 2002. And in order to really know what we need to do at this particular juncture, we need to think about that in context. A lot of things that Sam has said I don't disagree with. I think that people should have rights and they should be able to take action, but I think that we need to create a framework in which the town appreciates the historical preservation of a lot of our older homes and make sure that we preserve things like trees and the look and feel of the historic town that we live in. So I would say that really needs to be looked at in a master plan that everyone in this town is going to have an opportunity to weigh in on.
Thank you. We're now going to move on to Ward 2. The first question goes to you, Mr. Dardia. The Downtown Westfield Corporation recently reported that South Avenue storefronts are at 100% occupancy. Do you think that South Avenue is doing something right that the Central Business District is doing wrong?
Well, here are my thoughts, and they're the thoughts of our Ward 2 residents. And we need to insist on the development of a revised master plan, the full participation of residents and business owners, as my running mate Linda had just mentioned. Our Ward 2 neighbors and local business owners are key stakeholders. Their input must guide the process to create and implement a long-term vision for retail and parking, whether it be on the north or the south side. These crucial decisions affect our neighborhoods, home values, and town's economy. Part of Westfield's charm is our picturesque downtown and landmark homes. We should be strengthening our investment in the preservation of historical properties whenever feasible. And you know, a master plan is a lot like a road map, and most of us wouldn't travel to an unfamiliar place without one. However, our town has not updated its master plan since 2002. That's like using a very outdated GPS. And I would just note that Summit recently revised their master plan, and the process involved the community, the residents of that town, as well as the business community, and that's what we need to do in Westfield.
Mr. Corcoran, your rebuttal?
Yes, to specifically go to and answer the question regarding downtown and vacancy and occupancy rates. The mayor and council had the downtown task force. They implemented, had 39 recommendations. Since then, there's been quite a few of them implemented. We had an 88% occupancy rate in town. We're now at a 91% occupancy rate. This is an ongoing problem with across the country. As I walk ward to ward, house to house in the Ward 2, you see Amazon, you see the different boxes. Everyone's ordering online. What we need to do is to focus on creating a marketing plan for downtown. I also intend to pair some home businesses in town and create some shared workspace and put them together with a couple of landlords in town. That's part of my plan, what I intend to do, and would help increase the occupancy rate in town.
The next question goes to you, Mr. Corcoran. There's been much discussion publicly about Mrs. Brindle's lack of voting record and Mayor Skibitsky's absence at council meetings. Do you think these are relevant issues when it comes to either candidate's ability to govern?
I don't think it's a big deal. I know it's been made out a big deal. It's about the person. It's really, you know, you talk about party, we talk about the party Westfield. This is about the people. Who is the right fit for the job? Who's the right person for the job? I think Mayor Skibitsky has done a tremendous job as a mayor of this town for the last 12 years. The town is still a desirable town. It continues to thrive. Property values have increased over time. And like myself, I'm coming from a private market. I'm a senior vice president of a global prestigious real estate firm. I'm on their senior leadership team. And I understand how to make decisions and be able to make decisions right and the balance for the taxpayers of this town. So when we talk about different types of implementation of certain things in town, we got to look at the right balance and how much it impacts you as taxpayers in this town.
Mr. Dardia?
Yeah, so with regard to Shelley's voting record, I'd like to defer to her when it comes to her voting record, and as far as Mayor Skibitsky, the same, as far as his attendance at town council meetings. So what the residents of Westfield are really concerned about, and I've said it before and I'll say it again, the status quo is the same thing as moving backwards. They're concerned about things like taxes, and they are, as Sam had alluded, our taxes here in Westfield are among the highest in Union County. Our elected officials should be researching sources of income beyond taxes and fees to help our town maintain the highest level of services. We need to investigate available grants and increasing shared services with Union County and the Westfield Board of Education to reduce our dependency on tax increases and covering expenses.
Mr. Dardia, the next question goes to you. What experience do you have in running or working for a successful business that you think can help the downtown?
Yes, so I've worked with a number of prestigious medical centers within New York City and in New Jersey at high-level positions, focusing on on budgets, on improving clinical quality outcomes, as well as controlling costs. And I feel very strongly that these are applicable skills that I can bring to the town council. Now, one thing that is really important that I feel that I can apply from my experience as a healthcare administrator is collaboration. We need more of that in Westfield. And I know as your next Ward 2 town councilman, I'm going to foster a culture of collaboration and public engagement. During my campaign for town council, I've met many of my neighbors who feel that their voices aren't being heard. Our town government needs to build relationships with residents as we move forward toward the future. We should be creating a collaborative vision for Westfield, not one developed by just those holding office.
Mr. Corcoran?
Yes. So in my current position as Senior Vice President of a real estate company, I have to report to a board of investors on a quarterly basis. They look at every single line item in your financials. They question, they dig in. They don't want to see rises in costs, as opposed to when we talk about taxes, $40 million goes to Union County, right? The county has a spending problem. Who are the investors of Union County? Us, the taxpayers, and we're the highest tax town. Do we have the same sort of representation on that board talking about diversity, especially if you want it on the town council? We need some diversity on the Union County board as well. Their costs have gone up over $75 million. And our tax portion has gone up $11.2 million over the last 6 years. Went from $28 million to like $39, $40 million in 6-year period. If I ever had to report to my investor board on a quarterly basis, I would not be in a position I'm at my corporate job.
Thank you. The next question does go to you, Mr. Corcoran.
Yes.
How can the town work with the Board of Education and other surrounding municipalities to share services and reduce expenses?
The town already, in terms of shared services, the town, I believe, does some shared services with Scotch Plains. We're going to look forward to doing some more, which would actually go back to controlling costs and keeping our the taxes at a certain level and at under 2% cap, as well as we're going to look to, in my vision of looking at reviewing the county and our tax portion, we're going to look and create shared services for the county. Along with our school board, they're in control of their own, of what goes on in the schools. We could help out with the fields, the recreation and the programs. I know there's some fields that could have some work done, so I would definitely sit down and talk with school board members and work on different areas to implement maybe helping and getting the fields in some good conditions. But our DPW and Parks and Rec do a pretty darn good job at what they're doing. The fields are in pretty good condition. So for me, I will work with the Board of Education on creating shared services, as long as finding some shared service for Union County and other towns within our county to cut down on the costs for all our towns that are supporting the county and our big tax burden.
Mr. Dardia, your response?
Yes, of the 21 Union County municipalities, Westfield uniquely didn't apply for funding for trees and senior citizen transportation. As your next Ward 2 town councilman, I'll advocate for increased application of county grants and more shared services between Westfield and Union County, and that goes the same for Board of Education. We need to reach across to them and liaise and share and establish shared services for them. I'll also advocate for increased communication, collaboration, and coordination with the Board of Ed, as well as with county officials. After all, 24% of our tax dollars goes to them. As such, we should be getting a much higher return for those taxes.
Thank you. We'll now move on to Ward 3, and the first question will go to David Contract. Do you think the problems facing downtown stem from a lack of parking?
Thanks, Lauren, for raising that. I've walked Ward 3. I've knocked on every door. And frankly, talking to over 1,000 voters, the downtown is one of the top issues in Ward 3. Hopefully, we'll talk about road safety and paving as well, because those are other premier issues in Ward 3. But in terms of the downtown, parking is one of the top issues, and I don't think the government's done enough to address it. I have talked to business owners, I've talked to landlords, and most importantly, I've talked to shoppers and visitors, and they say over and over again, I don't go downtown because I can't find a spot, and when I do find a spot, and if I accidentally overrun my meter, I get a ticket. And it just happened to me within a minute of my ticket expiring just a couple minutes ago. Just a couple weeks ago. You can imagine that this is a frustration and a deterrent to shopping downtown. We have to address this, and I think there's short and long-term ways to do it, well beyond the Downtown Task Force report. So short-term, we actually have a prized asset in the South Avenue train lot. Parking's at a premium on the weekends. We need to take better advantage of that. First of all, it's communication. The town has not done a good job communicating that that lot has a lot of free spaces on the weekends, but I think we need to incentivize people to use it. So I actually have advocated along with Dawn and others, on our Westfield Together ticket, let's introduce something fun, like a little trolley that will take you, particularly for young families, and Westfield's filled with them, to the downtown from the South Avenue lot, whether it's on the south side or the north side, to make it more convenient. Because the reality is, and I know this from my business and marketing career, convenience trumps everything. So also we can create an app that will tell you where there's parking available now that we have wireless parking meters. But long-term, as Mike talked about, we need a master plan that guides development, that actually addresses the core issues in this town and in our downtown, and parking is chief among them. We can accomplish this with new people on the council.
Mr. Oliveira?
Thank you. Parking is obviously an important piece of downtown, and it's something that I'm proud to say during my time we've addressed on council. Under Mayor Skibitsky, over 120 spaces have been added during Mayor Skibitsky's term. Specifically during my term, we've developed plans to increase parking at the parking lot across from the AT&T store near Lenox Avenue. We've made free parking available at the South Avenue train station. We increased the hours. We made it available beginning at 10 a.m. instead of 12 o'clock noon. Downtown employees are allowed to use open spaces there, opening spots for downtown shoppers. We reduced the hours of metered parking from 10 to 6. Nobody likes to get a parking ticket. However, I will tell you, having a rotation in parking, turnover in spots downtown is critical to ensuring that we have the foot traffic and the pedestrian traffic downtown that helps our businesses succeed.
Mr. Oliveira, the next question goes to you. Residents have been noting the poor conditions of many of Westfield's roadways. Do you have a plan to repair the roads and the sidewalks in town?
Road paving is one of the most important issues that we face. I said that 4 years ago when I ran, and I still believe it today. It's a quality of life issue. It's something that residents feel and touch every day of their lives. Much of what we do up here doesn't directly impact residents, but road paving does. When the recession hit, the Great Recession, and the town struggled through those times and made it through successfully, road paving was cut back. I'm proud to say that during my 4 years on council, we've paved 16 miles worth of roads. The last 2 years, I've been chairman of the Public Works Committee, and it has been a focus of ours. We'd like to pave roads faster than we can, but there are financial constraints that always have to be kept in mind. The government's budget is limited by the tax dollars we raise, and so we must equitably distribute that money. We paved 16 miles of roads. That translates to 16% of the roads that the town is responsible for in town. Our road repaving process is very thorough. We consult with our town professionals, council members take input from residents, and council members share that input with the town professionals for us to determine which roads need to be addressed each year. The other item I'd note is that although we might not be able to repave the roads as quickly as we would like, I led a push to invest in equipment for our Public Works Department that has greatly improved our ability to repair and extend the useful life of our roads. We purchased a hot box and a crack sealer, two very valuable pieces of equipment that the Public Works Department has used to fill potholes and to seal cracks in roads to prevent them from cracking and splitting. We also launched a pothole repair reporting system on the town website so that in addition to the many pothole requests that may come in directly to Public Works or via the councilman, residents have the ability to report those directly themselves. The Public Works Department has done a fantastic job of getting out there and filling the potholes, helping to prolong the useful life of our streets.
Mr. Contract?
Notwithstanding what my opponent just said, I don't think the residents of Ward 3 would agree. Actually, if you talk to residents like I have, and I've talked to well over 1,000, they will actually cite the poor condition of our roads as their top issue. So, and actually the stats on the town website actually bear it out. I know David sat up here a couple of years ago and said he was going to pave more roads, but actually, according to the town website, we've actually paved fewer. 40 roads in the year 13 and 14, down to 36 in 15 and 16, and 26 projected to 17 and 18. So he hasn't delivered what he said he would. We need to do a better job, guys. Like this, I agree with him, it's quality of life, and it affects us every day. So we need to prioritize paving to the level that experts recommend, not what the town's delivered. The first place we should start is asking, why do we have a $12.5 million surplus, and why hasn't some of that money been invested in the roads? You need a rainy day fund, but experts say it doesn't need to be that big. That money is our tax dollars sitting on the sideline, not doing anything. It should have been invested in our roads. And if I'm on the council, I'm going to make sure that we prioritize paving our roads, because it is the chief quality of life issue in Ward 3.
Thank you. Mr. Contract, do you think the council committee meetings should continue to be held behind closed doors or open to the public as was past practice?
Thank you for raising this. Although a lot of the voters that I've talked to haven't raised it, government should be more transparent. This is what people want. And unfortunately, our town has closed the doors, not opened them. We need better transparency. We definitely need better communication. Let me talk a little bit more about this. When I mentioned the $12.5 million surplus to voters, they're shocked. It's not in any of the budget presentations. That's a key fact that should be shared. So we have a community discussion about, is that the wisest use of our tax dollars? Voters want their voices to be heard in this government. Let's talk a little bit about the downtown task force representation. It was just released this week, and I studied who was on it. I'm surprised. 12 out of the 13 members are registered Republicans, and the 13th is a registered Libertarian. Is that representative of our town? There's no Democrats, there's no independents on that board. That's not good governance, if you ask me. If I'm on the council, I wouldn't have allowed that to happen, because it doesn't represent the divergence of views in this town. Guys, I'm a marketing and business executive. I actually drive my brands, their sales and profits, by actually engaging lots of different voices, because lots of voices bring better solutions. It's called diversity, and diversity breeds better outcomes. Our government doesn't preach this and doesn't practice it, but we need to. Communication is the next thing. Our government doesn't do a good job communicating. I'm going to talk about recycling. Whoever thought we'd talk about recycling this evening? But the town quietly changed the recycling guidelines after my letter to the leader prompted a question or a discussion about it, but didn't tell anybody. Everybody has a right to know that you don't have to sort plastic and paper anymore. It saves you time. But I'm going to go further. I'm going to send surveys out, because we should actually find out what voters think. I'm in marketing. I love market research. Everybody has a right to have their opinion shared and listened to. I can tell you guys, I've been in town 12 and a half years. I haven't received one survey, but I created one survey for the Westfield Together group, what hopefully a lot of you guys got. That's how we can drive transparency and better communication.
Time is up. Sorry. Mr. Oliveira, your response.
Thank you. So many topics to touch on there. Before I get to the committee meeting, let me just say, as far as the road repaving, the number of roads is not what's important. It's the distance and the volume. There's a difference between paving 1 block Midwood Place and 3.5 blocks of Roger Avenue. On to the committee meetings, which was discussed, which was the question. Committee meetings, the idea, this is an issue that comes up during election campaigns, and the idea that people are clamoring to attend these meetings is just not true. Our public meetings are barely attended. Why? Because the people have faith in the government, the good government that we deliver. Our budget meetings,
Folks.
our budgets are presented to the public at a public meeting, and we get very few questions. Items like the surplus and other factors are highlighted in the budget and the budget presentation. Our budget is available on websites that are available and open to the public at all times. So we do make things public. We do interact with the public. Council people are constantly meeting with residents and receiving emails and responding to emails.
Thank you. Mr. Oliveira, do you feel that the town's emergency services, including the fire department, are adequately staffed?
I do. And let me tell you why. Nothing's more important to me and the residents that I represent than keeping our town safe and our property values secure. The Public Safety Committee, of which I served 1 year during my term, meets regularly with the police chief and fire chief, as does the Finance Policy Committee. And during those meetings, we listen to our experienced town professionals, and we seek their guidance on what they tell us adequate staffing is. And they've not come to us and said that we are understaffed and unable to do our job. During the Great Recession, there were cutbacks in the police and fire department through attrition. We did not lay off, it was through attrition. And I'm proud to say that since that time, we've been able to restore our staffing levels to what they previously were. We have 59 positions in our police department, which has been restored from 51 one, which we were cut to during the Great Recession. Our fire department had to go back to 4 7-man platoons. We've restored that to 4 8-man platoons. I also think it's important to note that we're one of the few towns that has a paid fire force. It's important to this mayor and council, and we continue to support our fire department. We have 2 paid firehouses to cover the south side and the north side of town quickly. Paid fire department helps lower homeowners insurance rates. You can ask our friends and our neighbors in Scotch Plains, whose homeowners insurance rates are typically higher than ours, one factor being we have a paid fire department, they do not. We've invested in a ladder truck and a pumper truck for the fire department over the last 4 years. We've purchased new vehicles for the police department. The Public Works building has a special section for the police department for them to process vehicles that are involved in accidents. So we've fully invested in our police and fire departments. We value the service they provide, and we've worked hard to restore the level of staffing that helps them to do their job even better than they have already been doing it.
Mr. Contract?
I think emergency services are critical, and there's more to it than staffing. So I would agree that we likely have the right coverage and the right staffing. We should always keep asking, do we? Because it's critical to all homeowners. But I think there are other elements that have not been covered by the town. Road safety is chief among them. I've talked to over 1,000 voters, and many are concerned about speeding in Ward 3. You name the street, people are speeding on it. I saw it when I canvassed. We need to do a whole lot more. When you combine speeding with distracted driving, we're asking for an accident to happen, and we should prevent it by being proactive. That's what I'm all about. There's a range of solutions that we can bring to bear to address dangerous intersections, corners, or streets. I live on one, Shacamax and Rahway. There's usually 1 or 2 bad accidents a year. Nothing happens. People want action. We can use more police enforcement, better signage, better lighting, even speed barriers to slow cars down and actually make our roads safer for ourselves and our kids. And that's what matters.
Thank you. We will now move on to Ward 4. Ms. Mackey, you get the first question. Residents were recently upset over the potential tearing down of the historic Pearson home. What can the town council do to preserve more of Westfield's historic homes?
This is a question that does come up frequently as I tour Ward 4 and speak to our residents. I'm very pleased that that house was preserved. It meant a lot to this town. We are talking a lot about the master plan tonight, but a lot of the issues here circle back to defining what we want to be as a town and putting ordinances in place. One of the problems with the Clark Pearson house is that a lot of the residents weren't aware that this was an issue until the property was already sold and being developed. This goes back to communication, and if we had an opportunity to push information out to our public more effectively and alert them when something big is on the agenda, I think our residents would really enjoy that. I don't believe that people don't show up to council meetings because they're disinterested. I think life is very challenging. I think people work in the city and have families and other obligations, and it's difficult to get here. But I firmly believe that if our residents knew that a project like that was going on or 333 Central was occurring, I believe they would come out if we could address them, or if we move to a more interactive virtual council meeting where they could be perhaps typing in their questions and letting their voice be heard.
Mr. Loughlin.
Thank you. I am proud that people choose to invest in Westfield, and we need to continue to protect the character of our community while respecting the rights of property owners. No one wants to see historic homes demolished. However, the town must operate within the parameters of applicable laws. Local governments do not have the power to prohibit demolitions. Rather, it is the private property owner who has the ability to protect their own home and choose historic designation. When developers sued the town to rezone the historic Westfield Armory, this council fought hard and protected it. Many armories around the state and county have closed. If the armory is ever sold, it will remain zoned for single-family housing and not high-density affordable housing. I have, always will, protect our neighborhood, historic homes, and communicate with the residents.
Mr. Loughlin. Westfield is currently an all-Republican mayor and council. While that might be different after November, the Union County Freeholder Board is entirely Democratic. How do you think you are able to work across political aisles to improve the town?
The best way to work across political aisles and to work with other parties is to ignore other parties. Since first being elected to town council, I have worked with state, local, and county representatives of both political parties on various issues. Even though I strongly disagree with the county freeholders' spending practices, I have a close working relationship with them, and they're all Democrats. Through my relationships with these elected officials, we stopped the train whistle at our border with Clark, stopped the proposed 150-foot Armory cell phone tower, expanded high school parking and the parking lot at Edison School by 107 spaces, shared paving resources with the state and Union County to pave numerous state and county roads, achieved 9 inbound and 9 outbound one-seat train rides for the first time ever, managed the town's emergency response to Superstorm Sandy, and most recently, removed the Armory from the town's affordable housing plan. While I am working with other elected officials across party lines to achieve real results for Westfield, my opponent uses Facebook to attack them and chooses to criticize and berate staff outside of their office. My opponent's lack of respect for the other side shows how she will act as your representative, and our town deserves better.
Ms. Mackey?
Miss Mackey. I find that actually, I find that laughable, as I have spent my entire life surrounded by Republicans. I am born to Republicans, and my oldest and closest friend is a Republican. As I've knocked on the doors, my best conversations have been with Republicans, because I can sit down and have a conversation, and I firmly believe that our best chance of an answer to a solution that solves the residents of this town is hearing from both the Republicans and the Democrats. And I don't know whose Facebook you're on, Mr. Loughlin, but how I act in my life is to engage everybody, and there are a lot of people in this room that know that to be true.
I again remind the audience to please remain quiet until the end. Ms. Mackey, residents say they have been waiting for many years for their roads to be paved. How can Westfield improve its aging infrastructure?
This is probably the #1 question that comes up when I walk Ward 4. We're sitting on a surplus right now, and when our residents learn that we're sitting on a surplus, they can't understand why we're not choosing this time to make the investment in our infrastructure. I appreciate that this council was a part of bringing the budget up to speed, and now that we're there, the failure to invest in our roads could set us up for a financial situation down the road when our coffers aren't so high and when the tear downs aren't so prolific. So what our residents want to know, especially Ward 4, which certainly seems to be suffering the most at the hands of the tear downs, is why the tax base that goes from a modest home of a $10,000, a big house goes up and the town is taking in $25,000. They want to know why there isn't money to repair the roads. Not to mention that those construction vehicles place a lot of harm to the existing roads, and the fact that we don't protect the roads that finally get paved. I live on Hazel Avenue. It hasn't been paved in 42 years. But with the tear downs being the way they are, should somebody tear down a house tomorrow, we finally get our road paved, they dig it up. There's nothing protecting a brand-new road from being torn up and a patch job being enacted. Other towns like Ridgewood have a protective ordinance, and that prohibits that kind of repaving, would require shoulder-to-shoulder repaving in the first 5 years of a new road. I think that that's a very simple act that the council can take and help preserve the life of our newly protected roads.
Mr. Loughlin, your rebuttal?
Thank you. Since I was sworn into office in January 2010, I made road paving a priority while maintaining a commitment to fiscal discipline. Once I was sworn in, I immediately lobbied for a spot on our Public Works Committee so I could pave more roads in our ward, and I'm happy to report we've done just that. In Westfield, roads are paved by need, not politics. We also share paving resources with the state of New Jersey and Union County, and surrounding towns in order to cut costs for the residents. While I have always advocated for the streets that are in the worst condition, regardless of who lives there, my opponent intends to pave her own road. We pave roads based on need, not based on who lives there or how long ago a road was paved. We will continue to pave those roads that need it the most in the worst condition, and we will always be budget conscious as long as I'm your councilman.
Ms. Mackey, your response? Oh, I'm sorry, that was your rebuttal. Mr. Loughlin, the last question for Ward 4 goes to you. Westfield's master plan was last revised in 2002. As 15 years have passed and the town has seen many changes, is it time for an update?
Thank you. Our master plan is a long-term plan, and that's why it's done every 10 years, not by me, not by the council, but by the planning board, as is the state mandate. Our planning board, which are volunteers made up exclusively of Westfield residents, improves continuously and revises our master plan. The next report is not due this year, and it's not due next year. It's due in 2019. And preliminary work has already begun by our professionals and our talented residents who serve on the planning board. It's important to note, however, that we're not waiting till 2019 to revise our plans. We've updated our liquor laws, which allowed Adams Tavern to come to downtown. Many suggestions from Mayor Skibitsky's downtown task force have already been adopted, including changes to our zoning ordinances downtown. We recently, last week, settled our third round affordable housing obligation plan, which has been added to our master plan and will be fully incorporated in our next plan in 2019. This plan is a win for Westfield and allows us to meet our obligations without high-density affordable housing coming into our neighborhood, like in my ward, where the Armory will remain zoned for single-family homes if it ever changes hands.
Your response?
Regarding the master plan, what Westfield needs right now, in the face of a lot of the changes that are going on, the shift in the retail paradigm, the need for parking solutions, we need a vision. We need a master plan that is not just being updated from 2002, when there wasn't even an iPhone. Think about how much we've improved technologically since then. Our residents want more than that. They want a vision. They want to see our south side and our north side become cohesive and vibrant like Cranford has managed to do. And they want to have a hand in the process. And that means inviting residents in, and not just people who know people on the council, Mr. Loughlin, as you like to say, you're so bipartisan, and yet there's nobody on these committees that share a different party than yourself.
We'll now move on to the closing statements. Each closing statement will be 3 minutes. We start with Ms. Habgood.
I'm Linda Habgood, and I'm running for the Ward 1 seat because I'm passionate about Westfield, and I'd like the opportunity to use my finance and leadership skills to add to the positive power of our town council. I'm a finance professional. I started out my career on Wall Street, started working for the Chase Manhattan Bank. I completed Chase's credit training program in 1989 when it was one of the most lauded on the street. 5 years later, I took a position with a U.S. government agency in D.C., where I led a team structuring long-term loans for infrastructure projects in emerging markets. Then I got my MBA from Wharton. For the past 20 years, I've worked with 2 partners to build a firm helping investors tap into the resources of government money available to support their businesses in emerging markets. My partners and I have raised over $11 billion for more than 1,000 companies by writing effective business plans reflective of sound pro forma financial modeling. I help companies structure their great business ideas into successful public-private partnerships, ones that are profitable, developmental, and attractive to equity investors and lenders alike. I can do the same in Westfield. Westfield needs a finance professional on its town council. The primary function of the town council is to make sure that our town operates efficiently and according to a well-tuned budget. Currently, our annual budgets are recommended by a board of 9 professionals, the majority of whom are lawyers, and a finance committee that is also chaired by a lawyer. This doesn't make sense to me. I like lawyers. In fact, I'm married to a very good lawyer. But I think we need further diversification of our skill sets and our backgrounds on the town council. I've served the town of Westfield in many volunteer capacities since I moved here in 2000, often leading with my quantitative strengths, my financial skills, and fundraising talents. I've stepped up to help many different organizations, from reworking budgets for the Presbyterian Nursery School and kindergarten to co-leading the effort to get town-wide approval for the bond that created Lincoln School, to being an advisor in our town's youth program since 2003. I know how to listen, advocate, outreach, and get results in our town. My platform is based on my desire to make Westfield work better for all of us. I'll scrub the budget that hasn't been looked at with fresh eyes since 2004. I'll search out new revenue streams to reduce pressure on property tax increases. I'll engage our talented neighbors of all ages and encourage them to get involved. And I'll regularly take on Union County to make sure that we get as much back from them as possible in the form of investment, grants, and services. Based on my experience as a dedicated volunteer and a finance professional, I believe I have the quantitative and qualitative skills necessary to serve as your Ward 1 councilwoman. My numbers skills are key, but I also bring a can-do spirit and a knack for motivating others to get things done right and on time.
Your time
I'm ready
is
to
up.
work for you for the next 4 years, and I
Your time
humbly
is up.
ask for your vote. Mr. Della Fera.
I am a lawyer, and I don't like lawyers so much, frankly. But tonight's debate topics are certainly important ones, but the two most critical questions should be, is Westfield better off today than it was 4 years ago? And which candidate is more likely to make our town even better in the years to come? Westfield has been a wonderful community for many years. My family and I have been proud to call Westfield and the First Ward our home for 21 years. But Westfield is safer, more attractive, and financially stronger today than it was 4 years ago, thanks to my service on town council. Some examples. We now have a AAA credit rating, which saves residents hundreds of thousands of tax dollars. We have a larger surplus than 4 years ago, and we are using more of that surplus to offset property taxes in our budget year over year. We have more police officers and firefighters than 4 years ago, as you've heard, and yet our total salaries and wages are below 2008's budget levels. We have acquired vital police and firefighting equipment, including a new fire truck and 911 system, to protect people and property from the seemingly limitless threats of modern society. Our Conservation Center provides more recycling opportunities at a lower cost and at an improved facility, and we now offer residents free mulch and firewood. We renovated the tennis courts at Tamaqua Park, resurfaced the turf fields at Houlihan and Sid Fay, and we dredged Mindoaskin Pond. We have paved more roads and planted more trees than during any 4-year period in recent memory, and we strengthened our town code under my leadership to protect and preserve our existing trees. We have more dining and parking options downtown, more hours of free parking, and newer, more friendly parking meters. We've done all these things while keeping property tax increases below the 2% cap without resorting to the state-allowed exceptions like Union County and the Board of Education do. Elected officials often seem to promise one thing and deliver another, or nothing at all. I have delivered a better Westfield over the past 4 years, and this is what I intend to deliver over the next 4. I will replace the aging playground equipment in Mindoaskin Park. I will improve and beautify the Edgewood Avenue Tree Park and Clark Park. I will use my 25 years' experience, not as a finance professional, but as a restructuring attorney, to ensure that our downtown overcomes the challenges of a changing retail world, just as I used those talents to overcome the effects of the recession, Superstorm Sandy, and Hurricane Irene. I will implement the remaining recommendations of the Mayor's Downtown Task Force, including more and better public spaces. I will seek to partner with downtown property owners on a sidewalk replacement program, but they need to have some skin in the game. That money can't just come from Westfield taxpayers. I will advocate for additional traffic calming measures, particularly on Prospect Street and Lawrence, Brightwood, and Dudley Avenues. I know that I can deliver these things over the next 4 years because I have delivered to you in the past. I have delivered a better Westfield as your councilman, and with your vote on November 7th, I will continue to do so.
Mr. Dardia?
First of all, I would like to thank you again for hosting this evening's forum. I'd also like to thank everyone for coming out tonight to hear what we all had to say. So I normally don't talk much about my upbringing, but I'd like to mention it tonight because I believe it illustrates an important point. I was adopted out of foster care when I was 2 years old. My adopted father left our home when I was young, leaving my mother with 2 boys to raise on her own. She went on to work 2 jobs for pretty much the remainder of her life. And I did my part by working hard in school and in sports. I got into college with a combination of athletics and academic scholarships, but still with a heavy burden of student loans. I earned my master's at King University at night by working there full-time during the day. The point is, I know what it takes to be resilient and resourceful. I know what it means to chart your own journey and take nothing for granted. It meant working a little harder, a little longer, a little later. I did it for myself then, and I'll do it for Westfield now. It's how I'm built. I want what you want, to have a council that is approachable and accountable, to have representation that is reliable, receptive, and hardworking, to have an ally at the table, someone who listens and cares. You know, I've forged my way and made my own opportunities, and I've long believed that luck favors the prepared. I hope tonight I've demonstrated the strength I bring to the table, the excitement, the energy I bring to the community, and the deliberative focus I invest in pursuit of everything that is important. My family is important to me. This community is important to me. And the reinvigorated success of this town is vitally important to me. Once again, thank you for taking the time to hear what I have to offer, and I humbly ask for your vote Tuesday, November 7th.
I want to thank everyone for coming out tonight and listening to all of us speak. I also want to thank my beautiful wife, Connie, and my 4 daughters, Victoria, Alessandra, Carolina, and Sophia. I'm humbled and honored to be running for town council in the 2nd Ward. As some of you may not know, I grew up in Westfield. I went to Franklin, went to Roosevelt, graduated from Westfield High School in '94. I was inducted into the Westfield High School Hall of Fame on the '91 state soccer championship team, who happens to be the highest ranked team as the number 6 team in the country from Westfield High School. My dedication has earned me, my dedication to school and my dedication to athletics had earned me a 4-year full scholarship to Villanova University that I earned and throughout. I am blessed to have this opportunity here in Westfield, living here in Westfield, raising our 4 daughters. I'm a senior vice president of a global global real estate company, and I'm a member of their senior leadership team. I continue to volunteer as well. I just ran a Special Olympics soccer event down in Virginia through a partnership at work. I also volunteer in town as a youth soccer and softball coach for my daughter's teams. As well as I've served as a member as the Historic Preservation Commission. On the Historic Preservation Commission, I'm leading the efforts to having it recognized through the state so we could be able to apply and receive state and county grants to continue the efforts of the Historic Preservation Commission. For those who know me, I'm honest. I'm a pragmatist. I'm not here to tell you everything you want to hear. I'm here to tell you what I can do and what we can do for you. And I'm going to do it with determination and dignity. I will work on continuing to keeping the downtown vibrant in a changing retail environment. I will challenge Union County on that $40 million tax burden on you as taxpayers in our town. If you've not read my statement, I wrote out a statement this week, went into the tap, and it will be in the Leader tomorrow regarding my plans as well. My passion, my commitment, my competency is what Westfield needs to continue with its success. I will work with relentless determination for what is right for you and Westfield. I am ready to give back as much to Westfield as Westfield has given to me. I'm humbly asked for your vote on November 7th. And if you haven't read, From Westfield, for Westfield. Thank you very much.
Great. First, I want to thank Lauren and the leader for hosting this debate tonight, and thank you all here in the room, as well as those watching at home for attending. This is incredibly valuable, and I'm glad to see so many people engaged in the process. I've enjoyed being here tonight. I'm running for Ward 3 Town Council because I want to see Westfield thrive long-term. My family and I have lived in Westfield for 12 and a half years. I have 3 wonderful children. I have an 8th grader at Edison named Adam. My daughter Ava is a 4th grader at Tamaqua. My little guy Alexander is a kindergartner. And we want to see Westfield managed better. And this is what over 1,000 voters that I've talked to, I have knocked on every door in Ward 3, actually knocked on many twice, and even 3 times. And this is what they want to see. Right? And they don't believe the town is being managed well enough today, right? They want to see action on the key issues that we've talked about this evening, including roads, road safety, paving, the downtown, making the government more efficient, and more importantly, making the government more transparent. That's what I'm all about. I'm going to bring fresh ideas and a proactive approach to this town council because I think we can do a whole lot better. My plans include paving more of our roads to the levels that experts recommend, making our streets safer, protecting our kids by cutting down on speeding and fixing our sidewalks, which we didn't really talk about. Re-energizing our downtown. There's a range of things we can do to create a thriving environment for businesses downtown that are not being addressed. Making our government more efficient. We didn't talk about it, but wait till leaf pickup starts in a couple of weeks and ask yourself, is putting bulldozers and dump trucks on the streets that scrape the asphalt a really good idea and a really efficient way to do it? I don't think so. I think there's a better way. And most importantly, we need to add representative back to representative government. Our current government's not representative, and that downtown task force was not represented either, and that is the biggest issue in town. So we need to add representative back to government and make sure that we are attracting and inviting those who know the most, not who knows somebody on the council or the mayor or is in the inner circle, to be part of the process, because diversity of perspective will drive better solutions in this town. And lastly, I want to truly build a two-way dialogue with voters. I was surprised as I've knocked and walked and talked to so many people, how few people know they're 2 Ward 3 councilmen, and more importantly, how few people say they've ever been asked what's on their mind. Like, I'm going to absolutely ask people what's on their mind because I'm your representative. So you'll be getting surveys from me periodically because that will help me represent Ward 3 better. I'll leverage my 25 years of business and marketing experience to deliver fresh ideas and a proactive approach, solve these issues, and make a difference here. And I've already started. I actually spearheaded the smoking ban at the downtown cafes. I prompted the town to change the recycling guidelines, as I mentioned. We can do a whole lot more, so vote contract for council on Ward 3. Pick the right David. See, I'm sitting on his right. But we have the same first name, so vote contract for council on election day. Thank you.
Mr. Oliveira.
4 years ago, I promised to represent the residents of the 3rd Ward with a positive attitude, an open mind, and a focus on keeping Westfield one of the best places to raise a family. The type of town that our children would be proud to continue the tradition of returning to Westfield and raising their own family. My record of achievements and our plans for the future demonstrate my successful fulfillment of that promise. As a member of the Finance Policy Committee, my financial background helped secure the town's financial position and efficiently manage our limited resources. We earned and maintained a AAA bond rating. We received independent acknowledgement of our strong management and strong budgetary performance from S&P. We controlled spending and expanded services with only 16% of your tax dollars. We positioned the town with the financial flexibility to invest in our infrastructure, handle unfunded state mandates, and weather financial downturns. 4 years ago, I promised to address quality of life issues with a particular focus on road paving. As a member of the Public Works Committee and its chairperson for the past 2 years, our accomplishments include paving of 16 miles of roads, improvements in pothole repairs. We reduced the Conservation Center fee by $20. We launched a free mulch and free firewood program for residents. We expanded recycling opportunities. We improved the speed, quality, and safety of snow plowing. We planted nearly 1,000 trees throughout town. And we renovated and improved our town parks, memorials, and monuments, which have never looked better. I've worked with Councilman Legrippo to open the lines of communication with residents of the 3rd Ward by providing regular email updates to our residents, attending neighborhood meetings, and responding to resident phone calls with in-person visits. I've shared resident suggestions with our town council subcommittees and effectuated positive change as a result. Although much has been accomplished during my first term, there are so many plans in progress and projects to complete to achieve my vision for the future of Westfield. Paving of more streets, including Grove Street in 2018. Purchase of new equipment for an expanded street sweeping program. Implementation of the additional recommendations from the Mayor's Downtown Task Force report. The reconfiguration of Lenox Avenue, which will add parking spots for downtown. Lights, paths, and playground equipment upgrades for the Centennial Celebration at Mindowaskin Park. And a new turf field, community building, and parking at Tamaulipas Park. These projects require experienced leadership and a council person that is willing to make decisions that provide the best services to residents in a way that does not burden our already overtaxed residents. Westfield is a beautiful town that continues to attract new families because of our charming neighborhoods, highly rated schools, and fantastic downtown. Investments in downtown by Trader Joe's, Adams Tavern, and Ferraro's, to name a few, combined with investments by residential homeowners, has contributed to an increase in the median home values of 17% during my 4 years in office. The accolades the town has received from numerous outside agencies did not happen by accident. They're the result of the leadership, hard work, and management of me, Mayor Skibitsky, and the town council. It's easy to get caught up in the negativity of political silly season.
Mr. Oliveira, I'm sorry, but your time is up. Ms. Mackey.
Hi. I moved to Westfield from Hoboken with my husband John and 3 children when my oldest son was starting high school. From the moment I moved here, 12 years ago, I've been an avid community volunteer. I've chaired various committees, beginning with the Y preschool fundraiser when my twins attended. I was a part of the PTO committee the inaugural year of the renovated Lincoln School. Every year we were at McKinley, I had the joyful task of chairing the back-to-school social. And most recently, as the mother of a PAL flag football player and cheerleader, I helped PAL renegotiate practice space, saving them thousands of dollars. When my oldest son was in Westfield High School, my family was asked to bring in a classmate as a foster child. I was a tenacious advocate for him with DIFUS, ensuring maximum support. Recently, I began to work with 4th Ward resident Frady Reese and her organization Unchained at Last to protect young girls from child marriage. And yes, on Facebook, I called out Governor Christie for vetoing a bipartisan bill put up by Republican Bramnick and Muniz. And I will always stand up to any politician to protect these vulnerable girls. As my youngest children recently began their turn at Westfield High School, my attention shifted from volunteering to our local government. I was surprised to learn that seats go unchallenged, meaning council members are simply appointed. That's unacceptable to me, and it should be to you as well. Our best chance for a vibrant government is engagement and respectful competition. I firmly believe that anyone who seeks the privilege of serving should work hard to earn the seat and work hard to keep it. I have many ties to different parts of our community, and I believe my personal connections to the issues that matter to our neighbors will serve me well. My career as a New York commercial title examiner provides me with 25 years' experience with municipal agencies. My 10 years as a small business owner provides me with an intimate understanding of the challenges of our local entrepreneurs. Together, this provides a strong foundation to represent Ward 4, and I would find it an honor to serve this town I am so proud to call my home.
Mr. Loughlin.
Thank you. 8 years ago tonight, I promised the residents of Westfield's 4th Ward that I would work hard for you if you gave me the opportunity to serve as your councilman. I would like to thank you for your trust in me, and it has been my honor to serve as your representative. I made several promises during my first campaign. I promised to keep Westfield safe. We were recently named one of the safest towns in the country. I pledged to improve the value of your home. Property values are up 17% since I was sworn in. I pledged to keep municipal spending as low as possible. We cut the town payroll by 20% while preserving our outstanding police, fire, and public works departments. I promised to use creative solutions to decrease your property tax bill. As a member of the Library Board of Trustees, I led efforts to identify and return $400,000 of unneeded surplus to reduce taxes. I promised to tackle the long-standing high school parking issue. We partnered with the Board of Education to add 107 spaces to improve the safety and quality of life of our neighborhood. I promised to improve the condition of our streets. We've paved numerous roads in the 4th Ward, throughout town, and more to come. I promised to keep Westfield a great place to call home. When the Armory proposed building a 150-foot cell tower, we stopped construction and preserved our property values. When developers sued the town to force low-income housing into our neighborhood, I removed the Armory property from consideration. When Superstorm Sandy caused extensive damage to our community, we relied upon new technologies and each other to get through it. Most importantly, we kept Westfield the premier place to call home in New Jersey. While I am very proud of my record, there is always more work to be done. I've walked our neighborhoods and heard your ideas for improving our great town. It is my goal to make sure that Westfield remains a safe and affordable place for you to live and for your children to establish their first home. In my next term, I will lead efforts to renovate Tamaqua Park, just like we did at Mindawaskan. I will fight for more one-seat rides to and from New York City. I will continue to control municipal spending, and I will continue to work hard for you. I am grateful for the opportunity to serve our great town. Tonight, I ask for your vote on November 7th, and I thank you for your continued support and trust. Thanks.
I want to thank all the candidates. I appreciate all of you coming out tonight and participating. We'll take a 5-minute break and bring up the mayoral candidates for the next round. We'll now hear from the 2 candidates for mayor of Westfield, Republican Andy Skibitsky and Democrat Shelley Brindle. Questions will again alternate between the 2 candidates, with the candidate directly answering a question having up to 2 minutes, and the candidate rebutting will have 1 minute to reply. At the end, each candidate will have a 3-minute closing statement. Fred Rossi will signal candidates when they have 30 seconds remaining with a yellow card, and again when their time has expired. We again ask the audience to hold all applause and remain silent until the end of the closing statements. The first question goes to Ms. Brindle. With the vacancies in the downtown and the changes in retail shopping habits, do you think the Special Improvement District tax and the Downtown Westfield Corporation are helping or hurting the downtown?
Well, I'll just talk about the downtown in general. And what we really have in our downtown is not so much a parking problem or a vacancy problem as we do a revenue problem. And I think that's why I have advocated for a holistic new master plan, because we need to increase the non-tax revenues in our town, of which parking can be one solution to filling up the retail shops. And I'll just talk about, I know the signature achievement of this administration is the Downtown Task Force. And I can all say you can judge the success, I think, of any plan. The plan is only as good as its execution. And so let me just give you a few examples of what I think the early successes are, if you will, the Downtown Task Force. The first thing is about the Downtown Task Force that you have to realize is really what's not in it. And what's not in it, other than the names of the 13 people they mentioned, which were pretty much all appointed, were the names of any individuals or residents that contributed to this plan. I met with the Summit mayor in their parklet, I might add, which is another conversation, and she took me through their 10-month reexamination of their master plan. And if you compare their master plan to the Downtown Task Force, it is truly a vision for their community that solves for things like redevelopment, parking, retail, historic preservation, et cetera. And the first 2 pages of that Summit reexamination are the 97 names of the people who are on those committees and commissions, not to mention the countless number of residents participated in this community-wide process. The other thing I would mention while I was in the parklet with Nora Radis, the Summit mayor, was actually thinking about our own parklet and how you couldn't have actually done a worse job of communicating something that really should have been a very good idea. And in contrast, the parklet and Summit, it was very clear that the businesses where it sat in front of contributed $5,000 to that parklet. It was very clear about that it was open and available to the space, and they didn't have to provide the furniture. Whereas our parklet, the businesses found out about it it within the day, the minute it was arrived.
Your time is up.
Thank you.
Your response?
Obviously, the retail paradigm is changing, but this idea that downtown Westfield isn't doing well is just not true. I mean, we've gone from 88% occupancy to recently 91, 92, almost 93 occupancy. In fact, USA Today, Gannett News named Westfield the #1 shopping destination in the entire state of New Jersey. Let me say that again. The #1 shopping destination in the entire state of New Jersey. Is there room for improvement? Of course. And we've been making those improvements. We've added 120 parking spaces since I've been mayor. We changed the liquor laws that allowed Adams Tavern to come into town, a hugely successful restaurant, which is helping all the other restaurants. And our liquor law changes also allowed Ferraro's to expand to the second floor and now to the third floor. They're opening shortly this November on the third floor, and they already got lots of events planned. In fact, one of the restaurateurs in town who is very concerned about the opening of Adams Tavern, and he's been in business for almost 16 years, he's having his best year ever because we changed liquor laws at Adams Taverns here and it's helping renovate the whole town. Thank you.
Mr. Skibitsky, how can the mayor ensure that the most qualified people are being appointed to the town's boards and committees?
Well, it's, I couldn't be more proud. I mean, I've been in the corporate world for 35 years, and I've survived many, many mergers and acquisitions and restructurings. And the reason is because I have a talent of recognizing talent, whether it be in the corporate world or people I get to volunteer to run for council to serve on our committees. It's one of the most important things that we do every January is appoint approximately 40 to 50 people to serve on various boards. And, you know, this idea that the people that are serving on our boards aren't qualified is just absurd. They're phenomenal, talented individuals who do a wonderful job of serving the town of Westfield, whether it be the Board of Health or the Planning Board or the Board of Adjustment or the Westfield Memorial Board. I see a lot of members here, and I want to thank you for your service. I appoint people not based on their party. I don't care if they're Democrats, Republicans, or independents or unaffiliated. I appoint people I think are going to do the best for Westfield and not have hidden agendas. People I trust, people I admire, and people have the talent to do terrific work for the town of Westfield.
Your response?
Well, it would be hard to know if they're qualified because you can't really find out who's on the boards and commissions. It's not public knowledge other than finding out through the organizational meeting minutes as well, and the one time a year it's published, and this is today. I cannot tell you how unusual it is that the people on our boards and commissions is not public information. We actually had to search through 5 years of minutes to figure out who's on these boards and commissions and when. And when you find out, not surprisingly, over 70% of those appointees are Republicans, even though our town is only 24% Republicans. So they're clearly picking appointees based upon who you know, not what you know. And I'm going to change that. We're going to open up the applications for boards and commissions to make sure we have the most qualified, diverse group of candidates, because I agree that is absolutely how you get the optimal outcomes.
Ms. Brindle, wouldn't it have been more beneficial to residents if the coming revaluation was done when the real estate market was at a low? And should residents be concerned about this coming revaluation?
Well, I think it's 30 years is a long time to wait on a reevaluation, and I think it probably would have been ultimately in the best interest to have done it earlier. That being said, I do think what we need to do, I am a little concerned about the potential impact of the reevaluation on a couple things, and one is in particular our senior population. And I think what you're going to find is that people that live in brand new construction homes who are paying a premium in their taxes is going to come down. Those who have actually done some renovations and maybe been reassessed over the time might be fine, but those that have been in older homes that haven't done any upgrades or so forth are probably going to be the most at risk in terms of increasing taxes. And they, I think, are typically seniors who are kids who have aged out of the homes and are probably on fixed incomes and might be cash rich in terms of and living on fixed income. And I think that's going to be a concern because our property taxes are driving people, particularly seniors, out of our community. And these seniors are the people who are volunteers, who are board members, who are really instrumental to the fabric of our community. And I think what we have to do as part of this reevaluation is be on top of it as it goes along. So if we do indeed know that it's the seniors and others that we feel like might be at risk and forced out of their homes in terms of cost, that we can proactively identify maybe some types of solutions to make sure that we can keep them.
So it was a a very obvious, it was a very clear and important decision not to do revaluation until the state forced us. And the reason is, of the 21 towns in Union County, we pay the most taxes to Union County than any other town. So what's that mean? If we reevaluated prior to the other towns, our taxes would go up even more. Let me remind you, Union County, in the past 8 years, their tax increases to us, to the town of Westfield, to our residents, have gone up nearly $12 million. And so we had to delay it. We waited until we were forced to do it. And I'm glad to say we're starting the process. The bids went in, and they came in a lot lower than we expected, and the process will begin later this year.
Mr. Skibitsky, Westfield residents pay a higher percentage of their property taxes to Union County than they do to the town of Westfield. How can Westfield's government ensure that more of their county tax dollars are returning in forms of grants and shared services?
So that's a difficult question because we've received since I've been mayor, we've received over $6 million in grants. Okay, and this idea that we're going to ask for more grants, we're going to get more money is, it's just not going to work. We received $6 million. We probably asked for about $18 million in grants during that same period. So you never get what you ask for, number one. Number two, if we're getting grants from Union County, and most grants, whether from the state or federal level, they're matching grants, meaning they give you $1 million, you match with taxpayers' million, another $1 million in taxpayers' money. And so it's not free. So we could ask for $1 billion, and how are we going to come up with $1 billion to match that grant? And if Union County decides to become even more gracious with our tax dollars to give grants, as the #1 taxpayer to Union County, who do you think is going to be funding those grants? The Westfield taxpayers. So we do our job. We've raised a lot of money through grants, but the idea is there's a machine out there printing money and giving it to us just doesn't exist. And by the way, it's not sustainable anyway. You got a $1 million grant 1 year, it doesn't mean you're going to get it the next year.
I'll just tell you, since Andy was appointed in 2005, the taxes that we pay to the municipality have gone up 65%, and non-tax revenue has actually declined, has not gone up at the same rate. It means that we're increasingly reliant on property taxes to pay our services. If you think you're paying more and getting less, it's because you are. And if you take a look at grants, these guys have been in office for 12 years to proactively work with the county to get the grants and money we deserve, and hasn't been that successful in that regard. And when your chairman of the finance committee is writing public editorials talking about the Union County tax ripoff, that makes it a little bit difficult to get grants. Last year alone, in terms of grants, Cranford got 17 grants in total, Fanwood got 11, Summit got 8, and Westfield got 3. So something tells me we need to be more proactive and strategic about grant writing, and you want to do it as part of a larger plan. You don't do it reactively and ask for it after the fact.
Ms. Brindle, what can the town do to curb overdevelopment while meeting its affordable housing obligation, but still preserve what many deem to be historic homes?
Well, I think, again, this really goes back to creating a new master plan, and there's 3 things that a master plan needs to solve for: revenue, parking, and retail. And going back to what I just said is that we're increasingly reliant on non-tax revenue to fund our services. That means we cannot be on this continued trajectory of taxes going up and services going down. You've seen it. Roads go unpaved. There's no more deck chairs at Mindawaskin. You're paying for rec fees that you didn't used to pay before. That is not sustainable. So we need to come up with non-tax revenue in a way to be able to take the burden off our back to fund services. And that's why we need a master plan, because that takes into things like redevelopment. We have seeded the private developers who are getting the majority of the revenue benefit. The master plan helps us declare areas of redevelopment so we can develop areas and get back the majority of the revenue. We need a parking solution. It's not just for shoppers to go into businesses. We need a parking solution to attract new businesses into town. Summit's just got Boston Consulting Group and McKinsey. Those are the people we need here. Those are affluent young workers that are going in and dining in their stores and are dining in their stores in downtown. We need a parking solution that's going to be able to attract those types of businesses, and that doesn't exist today. You get those in town, and that fixes your retail problem. And part of this plan, to your point about development, a master plan is is about development. It is about creating somewhat of this transit village kind of thing. So we can actually drive the outcome of our affordable housing obligation as to let the private developers drive it for us, as in 333 Central. And 333 Central, a good use of space, but a horrible execution. I haven't found one person that agrees with that. It should have been a beautiful gateway to Westfield. And we end up with a building that looks somewhat industrial and was a missed opportunity. And that's why we need a master plan will help avoid those types of things in the future. We need to put ourselves back in the position of driving the bus and not letting other people drive the outcomes for us.
So just a couple things. Nothing degrades a community more than a lack of investment. And a lot of investing is going on, not only in our downtowns and the edges of the downtown, but in our neighborhoods. And quite frankly, state land use law dictates we cannot do nothing about tear downs. So if anyone promises you they're going to stop tear downs, simply not true. You could try, you're going to end up in court, you're going to spend a lot of taxpayer monies to attorneys, and we're going to lose. But I want to get to the master plan. There's a lot of misinformation tonight on the master plan. We actually we re-examined the master plan in 2009. You know, and this is a state mandated. You do it every 10 years. It's a long-term plan. We re-examined it in 2009. We made additions after the Mayor's Land Use Task Force to it. We made additions after the Mayor's Land Use Task Force, the Mayor's Downtown Task Force. And we'll be making additions after our third round COA obligations are finalized. So the master plan is a living, breathing document. It's a phenomenal roadmap. If anybody hasn't read it, I encourage you to read it. And it's online, and thank you.
Thank you. But the next question does go to you. While operating in the 2% cap, other towns are able to provide services such as garbage, grass and branch pickup. Aren't things like the sewer utility, street parking details, and conservation center fees just a hidden tax? What can be done to get residents more for their tax dollars?
So, of course, any fee is a tax. There's no doubt about that. I'm a true believer in user fees, and that's why we've instituted some of those. I mean, and I agree, New Jersey is an extremely expensive state to live in. Union County is one of the most expensive counties in the country to live in. And so what's incumbent upon us to control that 16% that we can control. You know, the average tax bill is about $17,000 in this town. We only control 16% of that. So it's incumbent upon us to control that. So I believe in user fees because what it does, I don't think seniors or people on fixed incomes should be paying extra taxes to pay for services they're not using, just such as the conservation center. If you're not using a conservation center, you're a senior, you're living in an apartment or a home, why should you pay extra taxes to use that service? Same thing with our school fields, our playing fields. One of the things I did was institute a fee to use our town fields. And that raises about $100,000 a year, which we then use to refurbish the infrastructure of our fields.
I would say we have been conditioned to expect so little anymore that we're grateful for things that should be routine maintenance. So when they talk about repairing this dangerous swing sets at Minnewaska Park, we're supposed to be grateful for that. That should actually be something, an expectation for the high taxes that we pay. And it goes back to a growth plan for revenue, because the plan that I talked about with increased taxes and diminished services is not sustainable without a vision for our future that actually is going to grow revenue and attract new businesses to our town. That's why I'm hyper-focused on downtown, is because it is where the biggest revenue opportunity is for us. If we can get people to come downtown and businesses to come downtown, that's how we get your roads paved. And in absence of that, there's nothing that's going to change. And yes, these are hidden taxes. This is stuff we didn't used to have to pay for, and we shouldn't have to anymore. And so we need to take control back and drive revenue in our town so that we can actually give us the services that we should be expecting with the high property taxes what we pay. And there are so many businesses that used to be in town that aren't here anymore, and we got to get them back.
Thank you. Our first closing statement will be given by Ms. Brindle.
And then one more question?
No, it was 3.
No, done?
3 was the agreed to.
Okay. I agree.
We're just getting started. Thank you, Lauren, and thank you to the leader, and thank you to the crowd. Honestly, this is fantastic, and it's so inspiring to see so many people engaged with our local election. I'd like to thank my family sitting over there, Nora and Nick and my husband. This was a little bit more than they bargained for, and probably a little bit more than I bargained for too. But I would actually sincerely first like to close by thanking Andy, really for his service to Westfield as our mayor for 12 years. And to Debbie, his wife, who I'm sure has borne the burden of a lot of those nights at home in the 12 years. And I will tell you, I have a newfound appreciation and respect for anyone that's running for public office. It is hard and it's terrifying. And so I applaud anybody that does that. And this election is not a referendum on Andy's service. I think his contributions and commitment to this town speak for themselves. I think what this is a really vote for what kind of future we want and how we envision getting there. My husband Kip and I, we've lived here for 23 years. We're raising our 3 kids here. We are very vested in this community. We want a place that our kids want to return to, and we want a place where all of us are able to stay. But I do believe that Westfield is at an inflection point. I think it's one that's filled with great potential under the right leadership with a plan to move us forward. And we need a leader who is open, inclusive, curious, collaborative, and has a vision for moving us forward. I was that leader in my corporate life at HBO, and that's the mayor I will be for you. I plan on tapping into the talent of everyone in this community, regardless of your party or who you know. And I wanted to create this new master plan with a collective, collaborative vision for our future. I want to challenge the budget with fresh eyes, and I want to make sure we are prudent with how we spend it, as well as proactively and aggressively go after what we deserve to get, as well as seeking new revenue streams. And I will be a vociferous advocate for you with lawmakers down in Trenton to advocate for that 1-seat ride, as well as with the county to make sure that we get our fair share of services. But most importantly, I want to make sure that I give you a voice in our government, because I'm going to be inviting you to actively participate. Westfield's a great town. There's no question, but I do think we can do better, and we deserve better. And I actually think that we have a community of amazingly talented people, and I believe by tapping into the talents of every citizen, we can achieve amazing things together. Service was instilled in me from a young age. My dad was killed in Vietnam when I was 6 years old. My mom raised my sisters and I all alone. And the way she got herself back on her feet was by overseeing the Meals on Wheels program for the aging in our community. I retired from HBO last year so I could continue my family's tradition of service. And I'm looking forward to actually be privileged to be your full-time volunteer mayor, and I'm really looking forward to your vote on November 7th.
Well, first, I want to thank my beautiful wife, Debbie, of nearly 31 years. Debbie, you're an amazing partner, and I can't thank you enough. I love you. It's an honor to serve this great town. I first served on town boards, then as a council member, and then as your mayor. My business and government experience have given me the knowledge and skill set needed to effectively serve in this office. And I have been tested. The Great Recession, drastic state aid cuts, Hurricane Irene, autumn ice storm, Superstorm Sandy, for which I received national accolades. But we took it all on and accomplished so much. Here is a much abbreviated list of my accomplishments. Skillfully navigated the town through the Great Recession, secured Raritan Valley Line 1-seat rides. I established the first quiet zone in the state of New Jersey, secured $6 million in grant monies, changed our liquor laws, which allowed the opening of Adams Tavern and Ferraro's second and third floor expansions, expanded the tree planting program, over 1,000 trees planted in the past 2 years alone, reduced parking enforcement hours, added 120 shopper spaces in the downtown, added senior transportation services, implemented 29 of the mayor's downtown task force recommendations, and restored Minnewacan Pond. I could go on. Suffice to say, this town is beautiful and skillfully managed. Property values are up 17% over the past 4 years. This March, USA Today named Westfield the #1 shopping destination in the entire state, and we were named the 30th safest city in the country. Why am I seeking another term as mayor? After all, there's never been any pay, no benefits, no expense account. It's a 24/7, 365-day-a-year job. Well, I'll tell you why. First, there are 3 very critical state mandates underway that require government experience to manage, and we heard about them tonight: COA, Revaluation, and a master plan. And second, with my confirmed experience, I will finish what I started. I will complete the Minnewaska Park 2018 new plantings, new pathways, and a new state-of-the-art playground for children of all abilities. I will continue to implement the Mayor's Downtown Task Force recommendations. I will finalize and complete the plans to upgrade Tamaqua Park and its facilities. I will continue our strong fiscal management policies and AAA bond rating. I will continue working with our state legislators to secure peak hour one-seat rides. And of course, I will continue my Saturday morning office hours. After all, residents do love my coffee. You know me, I'm a proven, dedicated leader. I love this town as much as you do. With your help and your vote, we will keep Westfield moving in the right direction. Strong, safe, and beautiful. Thank you.
On behalf of the Westfield leader, I would like to thank all of the candidates for their participation tonight. Polls will be open from 6 a.m. to 8 p.m. on Tuesday, November 7th. Sample ballots will be in your mail in the next week. For any Election Day information, please contact the Union County Clerk's office at 908-527-4787 or online at ucnj.org. Tonight's forum will be broadcast on TV 36 as well as posted at goleader.com. Thank you and good night.